Persona 3 has always been a title that I have wanted to go back and fully play through it. The first time I ever did experience Persona and just the Persona and SMT series as a whole was back around 2007 when I was about 11 years old. My mom let me rent it from our local Blockbuster. Oh my god, that really is just showing my age. I mainly wanted it because it looked like a turn-based JRPG, and that was all I needed at the time. And even back then, I was enjoying my time with it. From climbing Tartarus to talking to my high school buddies, to making my demons stronger, I barely touched the surface of what the game had due to my mom eventually taking it back to avoid late fees. Since then, the game has eluded me, either from not being available at local game stores, or from being pushed back from the new, shinier releases. I even let Persona 4 pass me by when it came out because I just assumed I would need to play 3 before 4. I don't even know why I thought that, because playing through 3 they never really mentioned 1 or 2 part 2. Anyways, I didn't play 4 either. It wasn't until Persona 5 came out and, obtaining more knowledge and understanding of the series that I decided to hop back in. So I got 5 and put like 55 hours into it. Then it got onto the shelf because I put it down for too long. Then got 4 gold, then put about 40 some hours into that, and then onto the shelf. But then I got Persona 5 Royal and told myself we are finishing this game to see the hype behind not only this installment but the series as a whole. And boy, after the 90 plus hour experience, I completely understand everything. So ultimately, after completing Persona 5 Royal, I thought about 3 again, and young me losing that experience due to late fees, and thought, maybe it's time. But then I saw that you don't get to control your other party members, which I probably blacked out due to anger, and didn't want to experience that again, because honestly, the thought of not controlling what they do, I just thought of how angry that would make me feel all the time. Yeah, it just didn't really fit in what I wanted to do. But of course, Atlus, being the goats that they are, announced that they are making a remake of Persona 3. And bonus, you get to control your party members with some other nice new touches to improve your experience. So I decided to get it day one on Game Pass. Definitely would have spent money on it, but Game Pass, hello. Stream my playthrough of it, and do my casual gamer review series on it, because I am obviously totally qualified with all of my Persona experience. And you may be asking yourself, what is a casual gamer review, Mr. Self-proclaimed JRPG fan, but your completion list is abysmal and embarrassing? Well, I can tell you in a simple, scripted manner. A casual gamer review is a review done by me, a casual. I call myself that because I am usually someone who plays a game, and at the slightest hint of boredom, I put said game on the shelf for it to never be touched again or completed. But since I have started streaming on Twitch, link in the description, come join us, we have so much fun, I promise. I have made it a goal that whatever game I plan to do a review on, I have to at least finish the main story, and everything that I want to accomplish on top of that will of course affect the score that I will give it. It is mainly a review made at face value from someone who is completely unqualified, but I think sometimes I can be more comparable to other people's simple thoughts, which are like mine. Pretty much what I'm saying, this is a complete opinion based, and it's only my opinion, but I like to put a score on it, and maybe when I say these things, you're like, oh my god, I think those things too, and I also would maybe play this game, because we're sharing same thoughts of what we like and what we dislike, and if you don't, then you don't. It's whatever. I do want to state that for this review, I have tried my best to not include any spoilers and only show clips in the early stages of the game, but there will be some minor spoilers due to clips of certain party members and social links that are available throughout the game, but you may not be known that they will be available. But I do want to avoid doing any of the major spoilers because I do think that you should play this game because the story is great. And yeah, that's about it. I think it's time that we get into my casual game review of Persona 3 Reload. Even though I stated it earlier, my overall experience with the Persona franchise is mostly limited due to dropping most of the main titles apart from Persona 5 Royal. So I mainly fall into the new batch of players that has come up since the release of Persona 5, so I won't make that many comparisons to the original or other Persona titles except for what I absolutely know of and what I looked up on Google because I had to. That being said, let's talk about Persona 3 Reload as much as I know about it. And the way I'm going to break it down isn't going to be super organized, I'm mainly going to talk about how to balance your day-to-day life, and once I get to a certain subject, I'll talk about it as much as I can. It might get a little unorganized, but I've tried to do it multiple times and I just go off the rails. So this is how I'm going to do it. I'm just going to talk about organizing things, and then once I get to a certain bullet point, I'm going to expand on it as much as I want to, because this is my thing. One of the things I love most about Persona is the fact that you have complete control of what you get to do in each part of your day, that being after school and at nighttime. After school, there's plenty of things that you could possibly do. The first thing is to possibly unlock or expand social links. There's multiple different ways to unlock these social links. Some are available right away, some unlock the farther you progress your story, some can be unlocked by advancing your social stats to a certain number, and some are hidden away throughout different social links. Ranking these up are very important, as the higher the rank of a social link will increase your bonus when you fuse personas later, and we'll talk about the Velvet Room down further in the video. Also, if you max out the social link, you can unlock a persona that wouldn't have been available to you beforehand, and these are super special, shiny, and powerful. And if you want to 100% the compendium, it's very required. And to rank up a social link, all you gotta do is just hang out with that person or persons or animal or online entity, and that takes place over a few cutscenes. But it's great in this game because all social link cutscenes are voice acted, or usually they're not. And to me, that helps a lot because I am, of course, a person that gets bored very easily, and if it's not voice acted, I tend to not pay attention or just mash A, and I can't fully absorb what has been said or the weight of what's going on. But since they're voice acted by these amazing voice actors, even if I do get semi-distracted, I can hear entirely what's going on, and I feel way more invested and connected to the social links. And as you unlock more and more social links, they are available to rank up at different days of the week or just times of day. So you have to really think in your head and schedule out each day what you're going to progress. Me personally, what I did is I just targeted one social link at a time and filled it around the blanks of when they weren't available. For instance, there was one that I tackled first that was available Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So I would fit in people that were available Tuesday and Thursday, and then maybe a Saturday, Sunday. I always made sure there was a goal of who I was going to rank up each of the days, and then once I maxed out that first one, I would open up and change my schedule. But I always would try to max out one and then focus on the next one. I don't even want to say complaints, but just my notes about social links is I wish there was maybe just one or two more at night, because once you do the couple that are available and further down the road, if you have maxed up other things and run out of things to do, nighttime can kind of get super lame. I also wish that they were just a tad bit longer, because sometimes it just feels like a minute passes by and you're done, and you can grasp the weight of what's going on in that little bit amount of time. I do think that Persona 5 Royals could tend to be too long, so I think there is a happy middle ground that we could reach in future games where it just is beneficial to both sides. It's not too long, not too short. But again, they're all voice acted, so I can't really complain that much, because even if they are short, they are voice acted, and it's just great. One of the other things that you can do in your spare time is to study or eat food or sing at a karaoke bar. A lot of things that you can do to advance your social stats. These, of course, are very important because you need to reach certain ranks and certain stats to unlock other activities, which of course could unlock social links, or they could just be prerequisites altogether to unlocking certain social links. And I don't know how many times I'm going to have to say social links in this video, but it's a lot because they are very important. They can also be a certain ceiling that you have to reach to how you perform certain tasks. An example being like the exams that you have to do multiple times throughout the calendar year. Even if you answer all the questions correctly, if your academics stat isn't as high as it should be, you might not reach the top of the class, and you need to reach a certain number to get rewards from a certain party member. And for me, on social stats, I kind of ranked them up too fast at the beginning of the game, and that kind of was a detriment to me at the end of the game, because if I didn't have a social link to tackle, either at the daytime or at nighttime, especially nighttime, if I already had those stats maxed out, I didn't really have anything to do at nighttime, so I kind of just wasted a lot of the end parts of the game. So it isn't even a negative towards the game, it's just my part of the playthrough where I messed up at, where I could have expanded it farther. I just wanted to hit it as soon as possible, and I know that was a mistake. There's also special hangouts that you can have with the other party members that don't have a social link with you. I do wish you could have social links with all the party members like in Royal, but I get it, in the original that was not the thing. So it is nice to have those hangouts with them so you can still get their backstory and how they feel and how they progress throughout the story. And at the end of all of these hangouts near the end of the game, you can also unlock a special persona with that person, and it's really great. I do wish there was more of an incentive so that you could do them at the beginning, because I honestly thought they weren't anything special. Thankfully, I did all my hangouts, so I did unlock the personas, but I just didn't know that, and I kind of felt it was taking away from my social links when really it wasn't. And all of these can change at nighttime. There is more activities available at nighttime to advance social stats, and there's different exclusive social links at nighttime, that only being a couple. But there's also different hangout things. I know there's like these can also advance your social stat only at one point, but you can also hang out with these people and they can provide other things. Like if you cook with them, you can get an item that you can carry along with you, and they can also help you with your garden on the rooftop, and it boosts those crops, which is really cool. But if you hang out with them a certain amount of times, they can get a permanent buff that will help them throughout combat. So it is also very important to do those at nighttime, because it'll help you, exploring through Tartarus and all the boss fights that you'll have in the end game. And of course, we have to talk about Tartarus, the always changing maze that has a plethora of floors that you have to explore, home to an army of shadows that just want to murder you at every turn. But it also holds equipment that is exclusive to Tartarus, and they have massive boosts that you will need, and a plethora of items that will help you throughout your adventure. And there are many other things inside Tartarus. It's not just a constant fight random encounters or, look around for every loot. I mean, yes, you should absolutely look for loot, but you can also, break a bunch of things that hold tiny bits of loot that you can sell for money. So definitely rack up on those, because sometimes money is hard to come by, and equipment gets more and more expensive, and you sometimes need money to unlock social links and all that kind of jazz. But you can't explore Tartarus all in one go. Within each chapter, in quotations, of the game, there is only a certain section of Tartarus that you can explore, so there is a limit of what you can do every chapter. But it makes perfect sense, because if you just can explore Tartarus all in one go, it kind of would eliminate that, goal for the rest of the game, and you would be crazy overpowered. But I think each section does hold enough shadows and equipment and loot and personas that you can gather through the shuffle time. We'll talk about it in a little bit. It'll definitely prepare you enough for each chapter. And yes, we talked about it being a maze, because every time you go back, even if it's the same section, it will be different each floor. But we need to talk about, as you progress on, each section will eventually start being different, like the setting entirely, and each one I think is just really cool. There was one that kind of hurt my eyes at first, but as I got adjusted to it, I could really appreciate what it was. And just as you experience every new section, you're just wondering how the end is going to be and what it all means, and Tartarus is just perfect. And as you're exploring all of Tartarus, of course you're going to be fighting so many shadows. Combat in this game, I like it a lot. It brings some new things as well as a lot of factors from older games, and I think it's a pretty decent blend. One of the main features that they brought from Persona 5 was the baton pass, which in this game is called shifting, where you hit a weakness in a shadow and you can shift your +1 action to a different party member so they can hit a weakness in a different shadow that might have not been available to the first party member. I know some people don't like the baton pass or the shifting because it can make the game easier. I can see that, but I also think it helps with new players and also just traversing through an endless Tartarus or palaces that can last forever, because you are fighting shadows over and over and over again, especially like with mini bosses or special shadows or rare shadows. It could just help a lot through getting through them quick and easy, fast, that way, players don't get like overwhelmed or bored or frustrated. Yes, I agree that it can be easier, but it does work both ways. Like, enemies can hit your weakness and they get a +1. Of course, they can't shift to different shadows, but there has been times where if they hit a weakness of one of your players and, constantly through all your teammates, they can do a lot of damage or even wipe your whole team. There was multiple times in Tartarus where I just wanted to run past a shadow. I got stuck on something and they were able to get an ambush on me, and they just happened to hit multiple of my weaknesses and they just completely destroyed me, where it was a huge challenge for me to come back and either beat them or, lose. But I do think, since we saw it in Persona 5 and now we saw it in Persona 3 Reload, I do think that is a mainstay for future Persona games. And, I enjoy it. And if it's something that you don't like, you could just not use it. You don't have to hit that button every time. You could just use it as a normal +1 and just prep for the next turn. The main thing that they added, that it was an original thing, was the 3rd-G gauge and 3rd-G moves. A 3rd-G is pretty much a special attack or buff or spell or whatever you want to call it for each individual character after they fill up their 3rd-G gauge. As you do actions and normal things, it will slowly fill up, but each character has their own special way of filling it faster. A main example is one of the characters is a healer, so when they heal the party members, they can get a crazy boost in their 3rd-G gauge, getting that special move faster. And in my opinion, adding this on top of the Baton Pass feature kind of makes the game really, really easy, especially if you hold them out for boss fights, because some of these abilities or just attacks can be super strong, but some of the abilities are just kind of overpowered, especially if you play them at certain times. I feel like this feature should be only used for possibly remakes of the game, because it just helps, amplify how your old feelings of these old characters. It just makes it feel extra super badass. But I think if it's like a mainstay, there needs to be more of a balancing of it, because I definitely was able to, defeat bosses in like only a couple rounds, whereas in normal Persona games it would last a lot longer. Overall, I enjoy combat a lot. It's super easy to learn. I think discovering different personas or shadows like weaknesses or resistances is always like one of my favorite parts about the dungeon crawling aspect of Persona, because once I find a new shadow, I just want to hit it with all these different elements and just discover those things, because it benefits you when you discover them later, because then you just remember, oh, that persona has this weakness, I'm just going to hit him with that. But thankfully the game keeps track of them, so if you do forget, you can hit a button and whatever moves you've hit on a certain shadow, it'll just remind you, hey, remember this, if you hit this with an ice move, it's going to come right back at you and hurt you a lot, so don't do that. And at the end of most combat inside Tartarus, whether it be against normal shadows or mini bosses, if you hit a certain amount of weaknesses or +1s or whatever, you can increase the chances of activating a shuffle time. This was a feature in Persona 3 and 4 where you get to see all of these cards and it gets shuffled around, and then you pick one of those cards and you get a reward based on what card you picked. Thankfully, in Persona 3 Reload, you get to see all of the rewards right in front of you, so you get to choose what benefits you and your party the most. These could be healing you so that you're not fully low on HP for your next fight in Tartarus. It could grant you extra money, extra experience, which is very nice if you're trying to grind. It could even get you your personas that you're looking for. Me personally, when I was going through Tartarus, I would mostly pick personas first, especially like new ones I haven't gotten yet, but I mostly would select personas to fill out my slots, so I would have them available to fuse inside the Velvet Room. And the Velvet Room is pretty much the same as most other Persona games. It's filled with an absolute banger. I know some people want it to be changed, but I think it's too iconic for it to change. Maybe I could be wrong for the next Persona game, but in there you bring all the personas that you've gotten throughout Tartarus, and you could fuse them into bigger, badder ones, pulling moves that were already available to them to personalize that exact persona. As you progress on through Persona, you will get access to more and more of these good boys. As you level up, you can, of course, make stronger and stronger personas, and as you max out those social links or max out those hangouts, you get access to those big shiny personas I was talking about, and they're only unlocked in those ways. So again, do your social links so you can get those cool looking personas. All of this is tracked inside of your compendium, so that way if you're like, oh, have I got this persona before, or what personas am I missing, you can just go to the compendium, and it's kind of like a darker Pokédex where you can see exactly what you're missing. And I use this feature a lot so that if I reach a certain level, I would just go and see if I have unlocked all the ones under my level, and I would try my best to fill that in so that when I leveled up, I just have access to that level and I wasn't getting too far behind. And honestly, accidentally, I did a really good job going up to like level 50. I just looked under and I was only missing like 1 or 2. So it is possible to not even use the compendium, and you could just get really, really lucky. But I do advise using the compendium so that you can 100% it by the end of your run. But to do that, do your social links. Absolutely do your social links and plan everything out. And in the Velvet Room, there is a character that will have side quests for you to complete, either in your day-to-day life or throughout Tartarus, or expanding through the shops and all this other stuff. And of course, if you complete these requests, they will give you rewards that you can, either currency or the special currency for you to use inside of Tartarus, equipment, and all these other things. It's just another thing for you to either do, to fill up your time or to keep your eye out on. And I like that they have these side quests because I'm not just focused on the main story or filling out social links. I always have this one thing, be like, oh, there's that thing there, I'm gonna grab it real quick, fill out a request, and it doesn't take away an action, which is always very nice. And then if you do a certain amount of requests, you can hang out with said person, and she's very sweet. And all of this is surrounded by these great new graphics. All of the cutscenes look super great, whether they're the anime inspired ones or not. All cutscenes look great. All the character designs, I think, look great. The voice acting is phenomenal. I know a lot of people compare them to the originals. I am not one of those people. I think just these voice actors did a really good job, and they're everywhere. As I said earlier, like 95% of dialogue is voice acted in some way, and it's just great. Everywhere you go as well, high school, your dorm, Tartarus, boss fights, it's covered by this great soundtrack. And I know Persona is known for the soundtracks, and I love it for it. Man, this soundtrack is just the best, full of bangers. And as you progress on throughout the story, I like to break it down in like 3/3 of the game, because as you progress in each third, every soundtrack in like the day life kind of changes slightly, and it fits the mood of what's going on, and it's so perfect. Especially like the last third, you can just feel the gravity of what's going on just from the music. It's just so good. The setting and the vibe is immaculate. I do want to touch on the story a little bit, and I'm going to do my best to not spoil anything, because I do think if you haven't experienced the story from the original, you should at least experience it throughout Reload, as I did. I think the story is really great. Of course, when there's like the gaps in between, you can kind of get lose a little bit of the pace, but honestly, not really, because they do break it up in these like chapters, being like, hey, this is going on, or a cutscene will happen to add on to exactly what's happening, and will of course encapsulate at the end of that like month or the chapter, full moon. Man, the story was it. Sometimes it can get corny. Of course it can. It's a Persona game. It can get super corny and super cheesy, but man, when they want to hit you with emotions, and that ranges from a lot of them, sadness being a big one. This game made me cry 2 or 3 times, and it got me tearing up at a handful of times. Also angry because there are things that happen to characters that you like, and it upsets you, and you could see exactly where the mistake happened from other people, and you're just get mad because you're really, really sad, and you're like, hey, this could have been prevented. But there's also a lot of joy without the game, and it's kind of wild that there is in a game that's based around death and, seizing the day. But yeah, the story's great. Again, I think you should experience it if you're a JRPG fan or just a Persona fan and you're like me and you passed on the originals. So if you played Persona 5 and are a batch of the new players, get this game. If you have an Xbox, just get Game Pass for the month and grind this game and get it. I recommend it highly. But yeah, I think it's just time for some final thoughts, encapsulate everything. Like I said earlier, setting, combat, everything put together with the voice acting, the social links, it's all just a really good time. Again, I do think that it overall can be easy. To do these gamer reviews, I just like to play everything on normal, because I think when a game provides a normal difficulty, that's like the base of what they wanted it to be. So I play that, and for me, I had like a couple game overs. Most of my game overs were fighting like special bosses or like secret bosses. But when it comes to like the main story, new like full moon chapters and even like end game bosses, it was kind of easy especially with the 3G. So maybe in future games, just the balancing. I definitely want to do a New Game Plus of this game before DLC releases, because I would like to max out all of my social links and 100% the compendium, so I'm fully ready for when the DLC drops. I am just a tad bit persona'd out right now because I did just play it for 60 to 70 hours, so I do want to put it on a little break, but I'm about to house sit for a family member, so I'm probably just going to do that because I won't be able to stream, so why not? And my only real issue that I had with playing through it, this again isn't really a negative towards the actual game itself. I mean, it can be seen as that, but it was mainly my actual playthrough of the game. Again, I stated earlier in the stats thing, I maxed out my stats way too early, and I kind of did my organization of social links a little wrong. There is a lot of, I don't want to say vacations, but points in the game where you're not going to school, and a huge portion of the social links happen on school grounds. So if you're not going to school, those are just not available to you. Unfortunately for me, I did a lot of the out of school ones early, as well as I did the night ones as fast as I could, because I didn't know how often I would have the opportunity to do those. So of course I got knocked those out. But whenever we were out of school, I just didn't have access to Personas a lot of the time. So yeah, I guess I am about to get into a little bit of a negative of the game. When you don't have an activity to do, whether it be a social link or a stat, you're kind of just going with the motions and just hitting next almost, like you just are waiting for the next available thing to do, which can kind of just drag on. I don't really know how to fix it because, again, it's how you schedule it, but it does suck if you do schedule things wrong, because then eventually you get to a point like I did where you have a month and a half left in the game and you have so many of these things you still have to finish before the end game, and now you have this thought being like, oh, I'm not going to 100% it. So it's mainly just a me problem. But it just sucked because it did kind of taint the last little bit of the game, where I just kind of wanted to reach that end point because I wanted to get to the end, because then I could just have something for sure to do. Overall, I think I had a positive experience in Persona 3 Reload. I think it's reflected on that based on how much I actually played at this game and my attention to detail to finishing as much as possible in my only single run so far. Of course, I finished the main storyline, which is a prerequisite of me doing this series in general, so of course I finished that. I completed 91% of the Persona Compendium. I didn't have access to all of them by the end of the game, so eventually I gave up on that. but I will, eventually 100% it in my new game plus. I did 98 of the 101 side quests. There's a certain one in there that was just smacking me around, so I was like, oh, not going to finish this. I will try again in New Game Plus as well, because I am getting demolished and I didn't well prepare for it. And I maxed out 18 of the 22 social links, which I think is really great without using a guide of how to balance your day. And overall, that's exactly what Persona 3 is. To me, is just how well do you balance it, and if you do it incorrectly like I did, you won't get 100%, but it's entirely possible to 100% it in a run without even using a guide. If you want to do it without the possibility of failure, use a guide. I won't judge you. Some people might, but it's a safe space here. Absolutely use a guide, because I will in New Game Plus, because I don't really want to experience the 70 hours a third time. Not saying that's a bad thing, but it is 70 hours. And in my playthrough, I was just shy of 70 hours, hitting 67. And I also hit both of the endings because I saved at the right point, because I was like, ooh, this is probably where it splits, and I was right. So, again, overall, great experience. There were some things that kind of made it bad. Most of those were my fault. I think overall I give this game my casual gamer rating of 9.5 out of 10. It is a long game, and it is a commitment that you have to make, and if you make a wrong turn, it could ruin the entire thing. I know there is a rewind feature in the game. I elected not to use it in my first playthrough because I wanted it to be as of a natural Persona playthrough as possible, so I didn't use it. It just so happens I, messed up, and it kind of made the last third of the game kind of fly by because I was just fast forwarding through days. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the review. Talk about it in the comments if you agree or if you disagree. That's totally fine. We can be civil. Maybe like the video, because, that would be very nice of you. You could also subscribe to this channel because I post all the VODs from my Twitch onto here so you can watch them. But if you want to watch them live, come onto Twitch. And if you miss them, they'll be here. And I also post all my edited videos and reviews here. So, yeah, I hope you have a good rest of your day. And overall, I hope you enjoyed this experience, if that's what you want to call it. Okay, bye.